Órale, Cholo, Trucker Moss movies and shows, and here we got the Equalizer Part 3. That's right, homie, número tres. Now, I am a fan of the Equalizer. When Part 3 came out, for one reason or another, it just kind of, I don't know, man. I knew I was gonna watch it someday, but I never really made it a point to watch it. I'm like, look, one day I'm gonna sit down and watch it. I knew I wasn't gonna go watch it in theater. I knew I wasn't gonna be just standing, just waiting around for it to come out on some streaming app. But I knew eventually I'll come around to it. Well, the time came that I came around to it. Okay. Now you guys could go ahead, find this movie on Netflix, YouTube, Google Play Movies and TV, Fandango at home, Amazon Prime. It is 76% on Rotten Tomatoes. It came out in 2023. It's an hour and 49 minutes long. And let's get to the description. Since giving up his life as a government assassin, Robert McCall finds solace in serving justice on behalf of the oppressed. Now living in southern Italy, he soon discovers his new friends are under the control of local crime bosses. As events turn deadly, McCall becomes their protector by taking on the mafia. Okay, now I did like part one. Part one was kick ass, homie. I really enjoyed part one. Part two, I gotta tell you this, man. I did watch part two, and I can't even really tell you too much about it. It just wasn't that memorable. It was somewhat forgettable. Part one, definitely with the whole Russian mob, and I think he was working like at Home Depot or something. Um, Part two kind of fade the memory of part two is kind of faded off, man. I don't really recall too much. I know they killed his buddies, his partners, but I don't really recall part two too much. I know I watched it, but I couldn't really tell you too much in detail of it. Part three, I'm gonna tell you this. It kind of falls somewhere in the middle of those two categories, right? I can remember somewhat of it, right? I'm talking about years from now. I'm gonna remember some more of part three, but I'm not gonna remember it as vividly as I will part one. So basically, yes, he is now in Italy. The movie basically starts off with an old man, which you don't know. He's driving with a little kid, and you don't know if he's like his grandpa, if he's a good guy, bad guy, or whatever. And he enters this house with his man, and they're both armed, and there's dead bodies just all over the house as they start going around the house. And then finally they see this guy, man, Mr. McCall, right? And he was there to do a job. So I don't want to ruin it too much for you guys, but nonetheless, he ends up getting shot. Denzel Washington ends up getting shot in that scene, and he ends up waking up in an old man's house who basically befriends him, right? And he's in Italy, and it's like, I mean, no harm. And he starts really liking the community there. He starts liking the community. He falls in love with it. He falls in love with the people. They're very friendly. They treat him right. But just like the description said, he realizes there's like this little small crew of bikers that are running around, collecting money from stores and getting violent with them. And at first, I was kind of like, all right, like, come on, man. It's a small, because they're all young. For the most part, they're all young, right? The bikers. And I'm like, ah, I mean, is this what it's going to be? We're talking about Robert McCall here, the equalizer. He's going to go up against these young punks, these young bikers. But then you get to see the connection of basically the head of the biker gang, biker crew, whatever, his connection to one higher up who is not a biker, who is, well, like I said in the description, is part of the mob and or runs the mob right there. And it's like, oh, okay, okay. So, now it makes a little bit more sense. And look, the action is good. The action is good. The story is good. You gotta do a lot of reading. Okay, you gotta do a lot of reading, a lot of subtitles here. Yeah, unless you're fluent in their language, right? It is in Italy, so unless you're pretty fluent in their language, you got to do a lot of reading. Um, it didn't really kill it for me. I enjoyed this movie. My favorite one is still part one. This will probably be my second favorite, just because part two was not memorable to me, man. It just kind of, like I said, faded off in memories. I don't really remember it too well. This one was pretty good, man. The action is good. The story, it keeps going, but it takes a little bit too long, in my opinion, for him to get involved. It's like, all right, homie, are you gonna get involved or are you not gonna get involved? Now, his connection to a young agent, a young female agent, I thought that was pretty cool. The connection um from the Equalizer movies, right? Especially part two. Um, there's a connection here, and I don't want to ruin it for you guys. But if you follow all the way to the end of the movie, it's like, oh, okay, okay, now it makes sense. I like that part. I like that they threw that little piece in there, that little gem in there, because it brings the story, his story, the Equalizer, it brings it all to full circle. And I thought they did a great job with that, because the entire time I was just kind of like, whatever, he picked this young uh female agent for whatever reason. I don't know, don't even really care, right? And she's asking like, why me? Why me? And then you do find out why it is her. And it's like, wow, that was pretty kick-ass, Holmes. But look, he was really willing to die. There was a scene there where it's like he just disarms himself, and he's like he really cares for these people in this small community. He was willing to literally just give up his life. I don't mean go out there, kick ass, and put his life on the line. I mean, like, you know what? Put my guns down. I surrender. Take me. Leave them all alone. And did they do a good job to really connect him to the people? I think they could have done a better job, but nonetheless, man, it was able to show that he really cared about the people there in that community, and that's what he was there trying to help. So, yeah, look, good movie, good watch. I'm glad I watched it because I do like the Equalizer movies. Part one to me is still my favorite by far. This one's not bad. It's not bad. It's good, good enough, I would say. So if you are a fan of the Equalizer movies, go ahead, check out the Equalizer Part 3. Cholo Trucker, M.A.S. Movies and Shows. I'll catch you guys on next one.